Good day, citizens of the internet, and welcome back to the British Report, where we dissect the Westminster Circus with the surgical precision of a knight and the sharp tongue of a court jester. Today, we are witnessing a phenomenon that hasn't been seen since the Blitz, a genuine two-pronged assault on a sitting Prime Minister that has left Number 10 looking less like a seat of power and more like a besieged bunker. We are talking about the double act from hell for Sir Keir Starmer, Kemi Badenoch and Nigel Farage. It is the political equivalent of being stuck in a lift with a relentless prosecutor and a very loud, very persuasive pub landlord. One is dismantling his policies with forensic glee, while the other is parked on his lawn with a fleet of metaphorical tanks. Sir Keir, grab your tea because it is about to get incredibly spicy in the Commons. Quick favour, if you are loving this, hit that subscribe button. Over 92% of viewers haven't yet. It is free, takes a second and means the world to us. Thanks if you did. Now back to the show.
Reform are not a Conservative party. They want to spend more money on welfare. We're talking about reducing welfare. Public spending is out of control. They're talking about random things like nationalising Rolls-Royce, nationalising oil and gas. We're not a nationalisation party. We believe that the talent is out there in the country. Let business be unleashed and deliver the growth. It's not the politicians that are going to do that. It's actually the people out there in the country.
The nuns at Naumburg Abbey in The Sound of Music famously asked, "How do you solve a problem like Maria?" For Nigel Farage, the problem is Kemi Badenoch. She is not just a leader of the opposition, she is a political kinetic energy weapon. She shares Farage's ambition to be Prime Minister and has launched a political tank battle that has the Reform UK headquarters checking their perimeter fences. Mrs Badenoch has cast herself as the ultimate anti-woke warrior. We are talking about a woman determined to take Britain out of the European Convention on Human Rights, ECHR, and end Whitehall's obsession with net zero, all while reviving high streets by taking a literal axe to tax. She is not just leaning into the right-wing base, she is trying to occupy it so thoroughly that there is no room left for Nigel to park his bus. Her tanks are firmly on Reform's lawn, and she is playing for keeps. The latest data from mid-January 2026 shows that this strategy might actually be working. While Reform UK has seen a surge to 31% in some polls, leading the pack, others show the Conservatives closing the gap as Badenoch finds her stride. In fact, a recent YouGov poll found that when Britons are offered a straight choice for Prime Minister between Mrs Badenoch and Mr Farage, the Conservative leader wins by 31% to 21%. She is positioning herself as the Stop Farage candidate, a move that is as audacious as it is strategic. She knows that to win in 2029, she has to dismantle the Reform threat before she can even hope to evict Sir Keir from Downing Street. Now, transitions in politics are often about as smooth as a gravel sandwich, but the move from rhetoric to reality is where the real friction lies. This entire contest between Badenoch and Farage is built on one word: credibility. The Conservatives need to win back the trust of voters on a host of issues, most crucially the economy. Mrs Badenoch wants to convince you that her party has changed so fundamentally that memories of Partygate, Liz Truss's mini-budget and the leap in net migration do not wreck the Tory revival. It is a tall order. It is like a restaurant that gave everyone food poisoning last year, rebranding with a slightly different font and promising that this time the prawns are definitely fresh. She is banking on the public's short memory and their even shorter patience with Labour's current fiscal struggles.
So, as projected and indeed delivered, Kemi Badenoch is the leader of His Majesty's loyal opposition, which means the Conservative Party have turned their backs on the idea of leaving the ECHR because that's what Generic stood for. What you're going to get with Kemi Badenoch is more of the same. Pretty much exactly the same as the last 14 years. I've got to tell you, one thing they don't understand, it isn't about the individuals. The Conservative brand is broken.
Mr Farage, meanwhile, has his own credibility mountain to climb. He must assure the electorate that a Reform government would hit the ground running and not collapse into growth-killing chaos on day one. This is why the recent spate of defections is so vital. He needs people on his team who have actually sat at the cabinet table, men and women who can command the confidence of the markets, and who will not be bamboozled by the permanent secretaries of the civil service. He needs the adults in the room to prove that Reform is a serious party of government and not just a very successful protest movement. This brings us to the latest political bombshells. Farage has quickly won over an array of experienced and fiercely ambitious former Conservatives. We are talking about figures like Nadim Zahawi, the former Chancellor and Education Secretary, who jumped ship to reform just this week. Then you have Sir Jake Berry, a champion of the North, and Danny Kruger, a serious-minded thinker who understands the inner workings of Number 10. These are not just has-beens looking for a seat. These are people who know where the bodies are buried in Westminster. For Farage, these acquisitions are gold. They lend him the institutional weight he has lacked for decades. However, there is a dangerous flip side. By welcoming in tranches of ex-Conservatives, Farage risks making reform look like Tory Party 2.0, the very outfit that was emphatically rejected by voters in 2024. His foes will portray reform as a repository for Tories who lost their seats and were refused peerages. It is a delicate balancing act. How do you become a party of government without looking like the government everyone just fired? Reform has sought to paint the Boris Johnson years as a time of chaos, with figures like Zaya Yousaf describing Johnson as a net zero fanatic. This strategy of demonising the old guard becomes much harder when your shadow cabinet is literally made up of the ministers who served under him. While Kemi and Nigel are fighting over the steering wheel of the right, Sir Keir Starmer is increasingly looking like a man trapped in a pincer movement. Every time he steps into the Commons, he is met with a double-barrelled blast. Badenoch attacks him from the dispatch box with a forensic, policy-heavy approach that highlights Labour's economic stagnation and the resurgence of the doctors' strike.
Whether she'd had a drink or not, I've no idea. She accused me of being a fraudster, basically, and I don't like that.
Right.
You can call me what the hell you like, and people do regularly. But, I've always been straight and honest where money's concerned.
Right.
All right?
This doesn't come under the free speech category, then, that
I don't
a rape
think...
genocide apologist is permissible, but I can't call you a fraud.
I'm not going to sue over it.
Right.
All right? Because, as I say, I do believe in free speech, but I'm offended by it.
On the other side, Farage, when he actually bothers to show up in the Commons and isn't holding marathon press conferences in London, uses his platform to speak directly to the forgotten voters. He paints Starmer as a disconnected elitist who has lost control of the borders and the budget. The pressure is mounting. The May 2026 local elections are looming like a dark cloud over the Labour Party. If the Conservatives and Reform manage to split the anti-Labour vote, or worse for Starmer, if one of them starts to dominate, the narrative of Labour in decline will become inescapable. Starmer's net approval has plummeted to record lows, and for the first time in a long time, the public is starting to look at the alternatives with something other than pure derision. Mrs. Badenoch has another fire to put out, and this one is closer to home. She needs to worry about the defections that do not show up on the national radar. To win in 2029, she needs the best and brightest candidates, the sharpest staffers and the most generous donors. But if those ambitious for Britain's future decide that Farage's happy warriors are the real vanguard of change, the future for the Conservative Party looks incredibly bleak. If Farage manages to convince even one or two members of Badenoch's current shadow cabinet to cross the floor, it would be a vote of no confidence that could leave her leadership reeling. Imagine a high-profile Tory frontbencher standing up and saying, "I've seen both plans and I think Nigel is the man to lead us." That is the red wedding scenario for the Tory party. It would be a crisis that could threaten Mrs. Badenoch's position before she even gets a chance to fight a general election. The battle for the soul of the British right is no longer a polite debate over afternoon tea. It is a full-scale, bare-knuckle brawl. The outcome of this contest between the anti-woke warrior and the Brexiteer-in-chief will not just determine who leads the opposition, it will determine the very direction of the United Kingdom for the next decade. As we watch this political drama unfold, one thing is certain: the old rules of the two-party system are being shredded in real time. Whether it is Kemi Badenoch's forensic assault or Nigel Farage's populist surge, the pressure on Keir Starmer has never been higher. The British Report will be here to track every defection, every poll shift and every fiery exchange in the months to come. Thank you so much for watching.